What's up, guys? Welcome back. Ooh. Yes, I hype myself up because nobody else will. I know. Make sure you subscribe though if you want to know more about me, MMA training, mindset, everything, growth, my story. This week, I'm going to share a conversation that Tazz and I had on Tazz podcast through Spotify, Anchor, all the good stuff. And we were talking about the difference between failing and being a failure. Of course, we've come across conversations with other students, and there are people that label themselves as failures. And I can relate. I know it. Look, I'm going to cry again. No, for real. I can relate because one of the memories that I remember where it all started, and this is very deep, but I'm okay with sharing it because I've shared it with my loved ones and of course had to heal through it, go through all that good stuff. But when I was very young, like 6 or 7, that's where my parents split. I believe I was like 7 or something. But when they first split, I put blame on myself. I thought it was my fault that they split. Typically, our childhood has a very big influence in our future as growing up, right? Growing up in as adults. And depending on how you heal from your childhood is going to determine what your future holds. And so growing up, since I thought that it was my fault that my parents split, literally did my best to make them happy or to do the right thing because I didn't want to be the failed daughter, right? I thought that I failed as a daughter. And yes, that took a lot out of me because I always tried my hardest to earn everything, to make sure that I was not the failed person that grew up. Like I didn't want to be a failure. And I labeled myself as a failed daughter. And then I started labeling myself as a failed girlfriend and all these things that I would do to self-sabotage. And so what that created was a lot of pressure on myself, and I did a lot of things to make sure that I made other people happy, just so that I didn't seem like a failure. And so, of course, growing up and now seeing the reality of things, just because certain situation happened to us does not necessarily mean that that's how we have to label ourselves, Just because that situation happened to me does not make it true that I was a failure, So I think what a lot of us do growing up, or just in general, whenever we go through a situation, we label ourselves and we attach our identity to that. Now moving forward, looking at the injury, right? I injured myself. Of course, it was out of my control when it happened. If it was up to me, I would have not injured it. But when it happened, of course, like my thinking patterns went up. Damn, I failed again. I am a failure as a fighter. I'm a failure as a martial artist. I'm a failure as an athlete. And those are just reoccurring patterns of traumas. So then I had to call myself out. And for many, 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 many days, I had to snap myself out of that. Because if we think of ourselves as failures, we're never going to do things that are really going to snap ourselves out of that mindset. It's a negative thinking mindset. And when we self-sabotage that way, we believe it, we truly believe it, and then do many things that are going to be self-sabotaging. And so in my example, if I thought myself as a failed martial artist, failed fighter, then I wouldn't not make the changes to keep moving forward, to recover properly, and to come back to the sport. So I had to literally stop myself from that mindset, because when we label ourselves to this negative thinking, then we don't take the proper steps to be better or to be happy again. And so, yeah, you could imagine my childhood being all about trauma, and that would explain how I started the sport and all the good story. But wanted to share that information because I know how it feels to feel like a failure. Like it sucks. Like we feel like we don't have the strength to be great, or we don't have the future. Like when we see people on social media, right? It seems like a perfect life. Or we see successful people. We don't feel like we're worthy of that. And that's not true. Just because we didn't accomplish a goal does not necessarily mean we're a failure. Yeah, we might have not accomplished it at the time, but I look at fighting. So I think about it like when we fight, and there's always a winner and a loser, right? The person that wins they either win by submission, by knockout, by decision, whatever. And then the person, there has to be a loser, right? Just because you lose a fight does not necessarily mean you suck as a fighter overall, and then that you're a bad fighter and you can have another fight and improve your record. But we all have to start from failing. And if we look at it that way, where we're going to fail and we can't improve on those failures, then that means we're never going to try harder, because we're just going to keep self-sabotaging and putting ourselves down. What's helping me is with the mindset of MMA, right? We're always constantly improving and getting better in MMA. But if we put ourselves down, before a fight, or we put ourselves down before getting into a match, if we're thinking negative before entering a ring, the mats or whatever, we already lost that fight. And that's the most important thing in life. Failing in our brains literally translates in our life. If we fail inside of our heads, we're never going to be happy. We're never going to accomplish great things, because we already put it in our head. So wanted to share that information, because now I didn't see myself as a failure after the injury. I worked extra hard to recover, to come back stronger, and to do what I had to do. I had to do it, or else how am I going to put myself back again? How am I going to prepare myself? It's on me. It's my responsibility to do it. I'm not a victim about it. I'm not going to sit here and cry about it. Yes, I feel bad about it at the time, but I'm not going to sit here and cry about it. I'm just going to do the proper work and the right steps to be better again, to come back stronger. For those that feel like you haven't accomplished anything and you feel like you're not where you're supposed to be, don't label yourself, because putting yourself down before you even get into that fight, you already lost that fight. Don't beat yourself up before you even get there. And so I'm going through that myself. I'm not beating myself up before I get there. And I'll continue to work hard for it with a positive mindset. If you want to know more about me, make sure you add me on Patreon, patreon.com/NaynayMMA. Okay.